How do people get trapped in self-destructive cycles? Why does nothing work to free them? Why can't well-meaning friends help them? Why can't well-meaning friends even understand what they're going through? And how is it that people suffering like this always seem to end up completely abandoned and isolated from everyone who loves them? And then also, when they do finally find help, what does that look like? What form does that take? And why does that form succeed where everything else failed? These are the difficult questions that Hazbin Hotel does not shy away from in telling Angel Dust's story. And Hazbin also doesn't shy away from just how bad these situations get. Seeing this character trapped so hopelessly, with no way out of any of his problems, and no one in his life was capable of reaching him at all, seeing the suffering, seeing the instability, seeing every aspect of his life crumbling before his eyes, and then witnessing this absolute miracle of the one friend who finds a way to rescue him from this inescapable prison his life has become. It is just so powerful. This is absolutely the most compelling character in the show for me by far, and there's so much to learn here, not just about those difficult questions and the insight the show is offering, but the way those insights get filtered through this specific character, a gay star spider guy. It is so well done. I think it centers around two moments, which are actually right next to each other, but these two moments are what Angel's entire arc hinges on. The first one is this.
Cut the act.
It's not an act!
And the question here is, it is an act. Everyone knows it's an act. Angel himself even admits it's an act.
Me? Fake? Wow, I had no idea. Guess that's why I'm an actor, dumbass.
One moment he's fine admitting that he's being fake, and the next he reacts like this.
Call me fake one more time, motherfucker!
And I'm not demanding that everything in his horrifically chaotic life be like rationally consistent, be sensible, Angel, be logical. It's not about that. I just want to understand what is going on in Angel Brain when he's reacting confidently in this scene and when he's freaking out in this scene, when both are in response to essentially the same accusation. And also I just want to understand what he means when he says it's not an act, when even he obviously knows that he's putting on a persona. And once he says this line, it's not an act, you can see it on Husk's face. This line is what causes Husk to change his entire perspective on Angel and ultimately leads to his solution of loser baby, which is the other main question. The form of the help that Husk provides Angel is poignant, it's beautiful, it's the simple, elegant two-part formula. You're a loser, just like me. What does this do? How does this work? Angel has all these problems which are inescapable by any other means except this, apparently. Being able to say these words with Husk, dance about it, and sing about it. What is that doing? That's the question. And don't go running to intuition on this. I understand that intuitively talking things out and having a friend who can listen feels like an effective solution when it comes to anything mental health nowadays. And that's true, that's real, but being real isn't the same thing as understanding what's going on. Be concrete. Connect the dots for me. What is Angel's struggle? Think of all these things he's dealing with. What is Angel's struggle such that nothing else helped but this did? Okay, so the more I thought about this character and reviewed all these scenes and exposed myself to just the tragedy of what Angel's life is, the more I realized that what makes his story so difficult to wrap your head around is that it seems like there's just so much. There's the drinking and the drugs and Val and the job of being subjected to the most horrifically violent sex, which he hates. And outside the job, people are constantly trying to roofie him and abuse him even more. And when he needs to get away from that, he's with Cherry getting into gunfights and dodging explosions. And now there's this new person in his life, Charlie, and she's trying to force him to do all these weird friendship exercises he doesn't want to do. And then there's this guy Husk who's on his case and judging him every chance he gets. And then Angel also has to protect Charlie from Val, and somehow that leads to him hurting her when he doesn't want to. And then Husk is on his case again, he's cutting him off from alcohol and he's being annoying. And all the while Angel's just becoming more and more isolated. Every part of his life is just self-destructing before his eyes. It is a lot. There's no doubt about that. But I think the difficult move you have to make to advance your understanding of what Angel is going through and really just how bad his situation is. This already sounds terrible, but it's even worse when you realize that it's not a bunch of separate problems, it's one problem. Let me show you what I mean. The first thing we see in episode 4 is this gay porn opening. And consciously we take it in as just that typical gay porn opening. Or so I'm told. That's what the gays tell me. But anyway, what we're really seeing, what our brain is being initiated into, is the Angel Dust strategy of recovering control. We see Angel alone. He has been taken advantage of. He is trapped. He feels lost. He is frustrated. He's angry. And then this.
It's hilarious you think I tell you anything.
We see the act that isn't an act, or rather here it is an act. He's literally acting. And just to describe precisely what we're seeing, his face, his affect, his whole mood switches immediately. vulnerability. He's no longer displaying discomfort and fear, but confidence. Or really more than confidence, arrogance. He is in his element, and he's exuding this powerful aura of control from a position of physical vulnerability. It's actually pretty cool that he can do this. And now, having done this, he can face what's antagonizing him with this new sense of control. And it's this same act that we see play out right after this, and really throughout the entire episode, repeatedly, as a way of also recovering control just in social situations. Whenever Angel is talking with someone, and they put him in a state not of physical vulnerability, but of social vulnerability, a topic he's uncomfortable with, or people talking about him in a way he doesn't appreciate, we see him go from flustered and anxious to cocky and arrogant. This is something he does with Husk over and over. It's something it seems like he's doing as this episode begins. Charlie is awkwardly trying to get everyone to open up about themselves, and Angel just launches right into Angel Dust star mode to avoid that awkwardness. And it works, just like it does on camera. Angel goes from being in an uncomfortable social situation where he feels trapped and controlled, he switches to cocky, submissive star persona, and he's suddenly regained agency in the conversation. He's in control, and suddenly he's no longer suffering. And this is not a perfect system, but it is something Angel can do, and he can even thrive to some degree with this. But he's made a potentially dangerous shift in his life, one that's hard to even notice, and probably even harder to force yourself to change if you do notice it. He now has this coping mechanism that ties back, that's dependent on the thing that's destroying him. That's tied back to Val, that relationship, that part of his life. And what's worse is that it's a very effective coping mechanism. And what that means is that if Angel wants to abandon the self-destructive cycle he's in, once he's no longer in Val's clutches, he will also be left without this effective tool of the Angel Dust famous star identity. He will not be able to use that anymore. And from then on, whenever he gets stuck in an uncomfortable social situation, he will be trapped in it, and he won't have any way of avoiding the pain that's coming to him. And that itself may not be so bad, that maybe he can live with. Let's look at another example. Someone humiliates him, and what happens?
You know what? You would be f***ing lucky to get a chance to f*** me. You know how much I'm worth? You know how many people would kill to have Angel Dust come onto them?
When his dignity is wounded, the thing he uses to rebuild himself is the fact that he's Angel Dust, the famous star.
You look like shit.
Not possible. Just a long shoot.
And once again, that means that if he wants to solve his problems, that will mean getting away from Val, and that will mean no more Angel Dust famous star. And from then on, when his dignity is wounded, what is going to heal that? Again, he'll have nothing. Another example, Cherry, arguably his only real friend before episode 4, the only person in his life who isn't trying to hurt him, but also isn't disgusted by him. What these two have in common is the partying, the drugs, the thrills, all the self-destructive stuff. And Angel does need friends. He needs someone who can relate to him, someone who's familiar with what his life is like. And once again, if he leaves all the self-destruction behind, then he loses Cherry too. He loses his one friend. Everything in Angel's life both hurts him and heals him. That is what we're seeing here, which means he cannot be helped without being hurt, and also he cannot be hurt without accurately perceiving that he's being helped. Meaning those people who are trying to roofie him and hurt him, it's tragic, but his understanding of how that would help them isn't completely illogical. It's just horrible and desperate and maybe a little bit ignorant, but his plan itself is at least coherent. Destroying himself in this way could theoretically help him. And you're realizing, I'm sure at some point throughout this, that I'm spelling out the poison phenomenon. That's the whole subject of that song. How he loves the poison even though it's killing him. But the thing is, when you hear that song, it sounds like Angel is just talking about drugs and Val. But that's not the case. It's everything. All of his relationships either help him by hurting him or hurt him by helping him. His social interactions are full of helping by hurting and hurting by helping. And I think most tragically is that the attempts to directly help him, like Husk, Angel perceives as attempts to hurt him. And direct attempts to hurt him, as we said, like the roofie people, Angel perceives as help. And it's hard to blame him. It is confusing when that's what your entire life looks like. But I think it goes even further than that as well, because what does Angel feel most threatened by? What is scariest to him? In what moments of his life is he suffering the most? It's moments like these.
I own you. Or have you forgotten that? When I say you say
Yes, Valentino.
when I say you are 20 guys before lunch, you say
Yes, Valentino.
The pattern of abuse here is being immobilized in a state of extreme vulnerability, and then being controlled, and then being hurt. In other words, for Angel, being controlled equals death. If you think about all these scenes where Angel's friends are trying to help him, the underlying sentiment that someone like Angel would feel is that these people are trying to control me, and if I'm being controlled, that means I'm about to be hurt. Before he can even recognize the help being offered for what it is, the vulnerability of his situation will overwhelm him. He'll see the all too familiar signs of people trying to control him, and that will terrify him into desperate action. Whatever it takes to get away from that doesn't matter. I know what's about to happen. Get me away from this. That is how people like Angel become isolated. That's why friends and family have so much difficulty trying to help loved ones who are suffering like this, because on top of the poisonous merging of all help and all hurt, looming over all of it is the trauma of control, the trauma of enduring a life that constantly robs you of all agency until all roads lead to death. And the last decision you're left with, the last pathetic scrap of control, is whether or not you pretend to like the poison. And this is the state of Angel when Husk first encounters him in our story. And probably because these problems have advanced so far and so tragically, Husk misidentifies what he sees, and the story presents us so beautifully and so effectively, because it is very easy to look at Angel and just see a shallow celebrity who's obsessed with fame. Forget the poison, forget the control. What this is about is ego. Pure and simple. This whole vicious cycle is actually just transactional. What are you willing to endure for fame? Are you willing to endure violent, humiliating sex on the daily? Are you willing to endure having an abusive tyrant as a boss? If this life is laying waste to all your relationships, if you need to constantly be drunk or high to even function, if you're turning away any and all attempts at people to help you confront what's happening to you, how is fame possibly worth living like that? Look at your life. If you would just take a moment to look at what this is costing you, you'd instantly walk away from it all. But you're just too stubbornly proud, you're too afraid of even a tiny bit of self-reflection because it will wound your precious ego. That's the fakeness, the act that Husk is identifying. It's not the fame itself, it's this thinly veiled pretense that Angel loves his life, which is fooling nobody. Everyone can see right through it, and you can hear that's exactly how Husk is trying to coax him into accepting his help. Look, all the rest of these people have problems. You can open yourself up to a bartender and still go back out into the world and be all cocky and famous if that's what you want. But here it is a totally safe environment, no judgment at all, and yet still you're too egotistical to open up. So that's what Husk is continually calling him out for. You're fake, no one is buying the act, just drop it already, until the pivotal moment when Angel tells Husk,
"It's not an act!"
And you can see Husk's shock as he realizes exactly what Angel is telling him. This is not about my ego at all. It's about survival. Angel is telling Husk, I am way past the point of caring about being a celebrity for the fame. I am way past caring about humiliation. There's no transactional aspect to what's going on here at all. There's only me losing more and more of myself to my abuser. Every poisonous road in my life leads right back to him. And if I do anything except let my life continue to be destroyed by my pathetic lifestyle, his abuse is just going to continue on forever. That's what Husk is understanding in this moment, that this kind of desperation cannot possibly come from anything petty like desire for fame. This is a last resort. This is someone whose life has been so brutally controlled, physically, mentally, practically, at every level, in every way, until he has no agency left whatsoever, or at least almost none. Because there still is that one choice that remains in Angel's life, like we mentioned, which is this truly puzzling decision over whether to pretend that he's enjoying the poison. The question of whether or not to put on this act that no one is buying. Why is that so important for him? What is it doing for him? And I think now we've reached the point where we really have to tackle that original question. Is it an act? Or is it not an act? Why is he okay saying it's an act here? He's an actor, etc. And over here, no, absolutely not an act. How dare you even use that term? And this, in my opinion, is, on a storytelling level, one of the sharpest aspects of Hazbin Hotel's writing. This point really floored me. The full quotation here is this:
"It's not an act! It's who I need to be!"
And for me, at first, that last part is what I need to be. That added basically nothing, if I'm being honest. Because sure, okay, it's what he needs to be, but he isn't. And that's that. It's still an act. Even if it's for survival, even if it's desperation, last resort, whatever, he still is putting on a fake persona. None of this changes how fake it is, right? Is it fake? So my friend Dion, who is my analysis partner here, had a fascinating response to this. Dion was a theater kid, which I wasn't. That was something about the show that I really could not connect to, in terms of its appeal, in terms of who it was catering to, and I also realized it's a gigantic part of Angel's character that I also couldn't relate to. And here's how Dion saw it. She said, just because it's an act doesn't mean it's fake. And on the contrary, good acting isn't fake. Think about the best acting you've ever seen, and tell me honestly that what you're seeing is fake emotion. It's not. What good acting consists of is internally mustering up whatever thoughts and memories are necessary, adopting whatever mindset, changing your behavior, even putting your body through certain experiences so that it's not an act. You actually do become the person the scene needs you to be. And what comes out of you as that person in that moment is real. It's constructed, but it's real. Angel isn't just using social strategies to navigate initiate conversations for like convenience. No, as the person he is in the state of pain that he's in, Angel cannot tolerate his own everyday life. He cannot survive. And he doesn't use his acting skills to manipulate social situations. He uses it to strengthen himself. He goes into famous porn star angel dust mode, and he actually internally grows stronger. There is a resilience, like a real resilience, that he becomes infused with, and that allows him to thrive in experiences that would otherwise destroy him. So no, it is not an act. It's real, or it is an act, but it's not fake. It is him temporarily becoming who he needs to be. And you can see why, if you're in Angel's shoes, hearing someone disparage that persona as fake, or worse, labeling it as a bullshit version of yourself, would just be so hurtful. Don't you understand that acting this role is the one thing allowing me to survive? And not only are you talking about it like it's gross and worthless, but you're trying to convince me that it's not working? Why would you even say something like that? Why would you want me to get in my own head about it and make me lose faith in my own ability to survive my own life? And if you look back at how Husk treats Angel in doing this kind of thing, it's pretty bad. I mean, it's understandable, like we said, from the point of view of Husk's theory that it's ego. It does make sense for him to act like he does, but still, Husk kind of doesn't let up in doing this worst thing imaginable for Angel's mental health. From the first scene, the first thing he says to Angel in the episode is not a very convincing scene in this movie you are so proud of, and the script sucks, and your whole act is pathetic. And not just that, everyone's acts are pathetic. I see through all of them, and I'm now going to expose them one by one. Just watch me, because that's how transparent all acts are. That's how much these acts just do not work, including yours. Husk just doesn't quit with this, and it's not just him. You really see this as a problem that's pervading Angel's entire life. I mean, he's working in porn of all things, known for terrible acting, or so I'm told, and it's extremely present in his own day-to-day. You look at these scenes.
Oh, Daddy, do you really expect me to memorize this whole script?
Just improv it. Do you think anyone watches for the dialogue?
He himself can barely keep up the charade. It's just not working. And that really is the issue. It is not working. Not anymore. Just like with real acting, it needs to come from you. If you need to be sad, it's a matter of finding the sadness within yourself and bring it forward. And if you need to be joyful, you need to search your soul for what makes you truly joyful and let that overtake you. And if you need to be resilient, and you just don't have any resilience left inside, if you are so beaten down that any shred of that is just gone, then you won't be able to play that part anymore. That is what's happening for Angel. The resilience needs to come from him, and it can't. And the most infuriating thing is that it used to be so easy. Angel watches his old films where the act works so well it literally won him awards. And he knows that nowadays something is massively wrong. He knows it's not working at all anymore. That's something he can tell by people's reactions. Not that he cares about that per se, that's not what this is about, but it's a sign that he has lost this ability to act. But the question is, so what else is he even supposed to do? This is all he has. So in his mind, he just has to keep trying. All of this is communicated to Husk here in this line. This is where he understands the depths of Angel's suffering. He gets the whole picture, the act, the desperation for survival, everything. And the question is, what now? What is Husk's solution to this? What do you do for someone who's hit rock bottom this bad when you're the only one who can help them and your only chance to do so is right now? Okay, be prepared to stand in awe of Husk's genius brain. After going through and examining all of what he did and how he did it, it's just, this guy has such a powerful insight into people, and to Angel specifically as well. It's mind-blowing. So this starts with a very bizarre line at the end of this episode, which really clued me into just how unorthodox Husk's approach is. We're at the end of the episode, it's after Loser Baby, after this whole glorious moment of apparently helping Angel, and we get this brief but kind of shocking conclusion in the form of this line.
Hey, how about that drink?
Question is, what in the world is Husk doing? I actually forced my dad to watch this episode. He's a retired psychiatrist who specializes in addiction, and he was absolutely appalled by this line. My dad is a huge fan of 12-step, and fellowship with other recovering addicts is a big thing in AA. But the whole point is seeing and identifying with another person who is suffering like you, but then seeing that this person is no longer using, no longer drinking, and then you get strengthened by witnessing the success that you've given up on. This person, they're like me in the important ways, and they're sober, so I can be sober too. But all of that is undone if the first thing Husk tells Angel is, let's go keep indulging your addiction. What is the function of this companionship you're offering through you're a loser just like me if it's not about taking active steps towards recovery? There must be something about the companionship per se, the identification, the fellowship, the empathy. What does just that do in isolation, even without the practical steps? And we don't need to look at the media for answers here. This is a question I can ask you directly, you who's watching this. When you've experienced moments in your life of suffering, why does hearing someone say, I've been there too, it sucks. Why does that make you feel better? Misery loves company is kind of an accepted bromide, but why? How does that work? Is it just about lifting your spirits temporarily, or does it actually do something substantially helpful in the long run? So, if you think about your experience, when I think about my experience, and really if you just examine very simply what's being communicated here, just like me, when you suffer, it is natural for it to feel like it's just you. You look around and no one else is going through this, or at least not that you can see, and you do conclude consciously or subconsciously, it must just be me. And that thought sits inside your brain and it festers, it mutates, and it transforms into this grand lie that if I'm the only one suffering like this, there must be something wrong with me. There's all the rest of humanity who's fine as they should be, and then there's me who is just made wrong. I'm something other, something worse, something monstrous, something pathetic. Angel has already been robbed of all agency on like a practical life level. But when you feel isolated in your suffering and this grand lie begins to form in your mind that something is wrong with you, that robs you of your agency on a qualitatively different level. It's not just practically there's nothing you can do. Categorically, there's nothing you can do because it's not a practical problem. You are the problem, and that can't change. All is right with the world as is, but there's no light at the end of the tunnel for a broken, inhuman wretch like you. Because look at you, why should there be? And that's why when someone does come along and says, "You're just like me," it means so much. Because if I'm not the only one, if this is something that happens to other people, to a lot of other people, that means this is part of how humanity works. It's part of how all this that I'm seeing, people living normal, average lives with their ups and downs, it's part of how all of that works. It's the difference between being malformed versus being broken. Malformed meaning broken about fundamentally what I am on a structural level. My design, my existence is broken, and that's something that I cannot fix. Versus I'm just broken, as in circumstantially my life is not functioning properly right now, and if that is what's going on, that provides a very different outlook. What I am is what you are, and what everyone else is. What I am is fundamentally natural, fundamentally right existentially. It's part of this world that's right existentially, that functions, and if that's the case, then practically nothing may have changed, but on a way deeper level, way more significant level, there's nothing about what I am that prevents my life from correcting. Before you can restore agency itself on a practical level, you need to restore the premise that agency can be had by a person like me. You need to destroy that grand lie that I am the only one. That is what Husk is communicating by saying you're a loser just like me. And in fact, you may be realizing this isn't just the story of Angel Dust. This is the entire story of Hazbin Hotel. Does being a sinner damn you to hell eternally? Does being a sinner transform what you are into a demon, a different being that isn't what non-sinners are, that is a thing of hell? Is sin something that exposes you existentially as fundamentally malformed from the get-go? You were born this way? Evil from your youth? Or are sinners just broken? Are they different from the inhabitants of heaven, not fundamentally but circumstantially? That difference between fundamentally malformed and circumstantially broken is what forms the premise of Charlie's whole plan. Sinners don't belong eternally in hell. Sin isn't what you are, it's what you did. It's what happened to you. If you believe the heavenly dogma that a demon is a demon and that's that, then yeah, the idea of rehabilitation is absolutely ludicrous. And who even cares what happens to these fundamentally evil beings? May as well genocide them. But if a demon is just an angel who's strayed off course, then of course that's fixable. Of course we can right this wrong. And of course it is morally reprehensible to treat their existence as worthless and deserving of cruelty and destruction. These are people. They're losers, yes, but they're people like you and me. That is Charlie, and that's what Hazbin Hotel is. There's nothing fundamentally preventing sinners from fixing their lives. In fact, the biggest barrier is heaven's dogma that sinners cannot be fixed, that they're worthless wretches who deserve their eternal damnation. And because this is where Charlie's coming from, when she first tries to help Angel, she gets a bit carried away with the whole this is circumstantial thing. It becomes more like, this is easy, we'll just go and get him and everything will be fine. And honestly, that's fine, you can't really blame her. Charlie just does tend to get carried away with these things. But the important thing is that she self-corrects right after that with this.
You caused it, you drag him back.
No. Don't force him back. Just make sure he's safe.
This plan of hers, her entire outlook, is actually very much like Husk's loser baby plan. Show these sinners love, show them that they're worth something besides suffering and damnation, and let them exist for a while in an environment where they're not defined by their sins, but by that worth, by that love. Do that, and they'll find the dignity, the self-possession to be good all on their own, just like Sir Pentious did. All it took for him was some time apart from the life that reinforced this demon identity of his, so that he could find who he was without that, what he cared about, about, what he wanted, and it turned out what he did naturally want was to be good. And lo and behold, he was the one who proved Charlie correct and demonstrated for all to see that the identity of a sinner is purely circumstantial and absolutely can change with a little love and time apart. Okay, all this is fantastic, but we are not done. Not by any means. Because you think this is all it's going to take to fix Angel's life? Absolutely not. There's still quite a big problem here. Because maybe this is enough for Serpentius, but Serpentius is not angel dust. Serpentius had a lot of vices and they caused a lot of problems in his life, but he was not suffering like Angel. He had not hit rock bottom. His agency had not been fundamentally stripped away and crushed like Angel. So we're not back to square one exactly. The basis for agency has been restored, but what is the plan from here? This guy is still broken. What's going to fix him? And Husk's incredibly insightful, incredibly caring answer to this is, you're not a bad actor. You just have a bad script. The role of cocky, carefree celebrity porn star just isn't you. You cannot play that role anymore. And the resilience that once granted you is beyond your reach. It's gone. You're never going to get that back. So here's another act instead. You're a loser, baby. And that's something you shouldn't just be. You gotta embrace it. You gotta sing it for everyone to hear. You gotta dance to it. Put on an entire Broadway-style production about how much of a loser we are. Treat being a proud loser itself as a new empowering role. Husk is telling him you cannot connect to that resilient, arrogant celebrity persona anymore. You no longer have that energy inside of you because you don't feel that way anymore, but you do feel like a loser. So turn that into a role and feel the resilience return. When your back is against the wall, when you're feeling filthy, etc., Husk identifies exactly for Angel when he should do this. It's all these same situations that you do the other act, the one that doesn't work anymore. Instead of that, do the proud loser act. And we see Angel hesitantly joining in. He's kind of grumpy about it at first, and then he starts to get it. He's questioning that strength, that confidence, the same confidence we saw him trying to assume earlier. We see it now. He has found that again. Loser Baby has returned to him the strength that can get him through his life again. Husk didn't just sit him down and explain to him that he has agency. He fashioned a tool that was perfectly suited to the types of tools Angel likes. And then even more important than that is how it relates to this poison aspect of Angel's suffering. This idea that he can't be helped without being hurt if he steps away from his vices, he also steps away from his tools. That is a problem. That is a big problem. And one could try to solve that by finding a way to extract Angel from these poisonous things, but that's not what Husk does. Instead, Husk reframes Angel's relationship to these things so that Angel can still engage with them, but not in a poisonous way, in a healthy, productive way. Before, we had an Angel Dust act which was all about the fame. That was what we saw in this scene.
You know how many people would kill to have Angel Dust come on to them?
We also see it here in the opening. It's all about his status, his accolades, and we see it in a different form elsewhere throughout the episode where he does this thing where he's basically acting like you're in one of his famous porn movies. And if that's the focus, the fame, then that ties back to Val. That keeps him chained to his abuser and to all his other problems. That is not good. That is going to destroy him. Compare that to Loser Baby, which does incorporate all of his same vices, the indulgent sex, the drugs, etc. Angel can be that still, but it's not about the status. It's not about the structure around Angel. It's about Angel himself. It's about who he is. This is a subtle point, but it's not about being the celebrity. It's about being a coked up, dick-sucking hoe. It's about being a skank, being used goods, a freak, a junkie, a nasty whore, all of which is internal. It's disconnected from Val, it's disconnected from the entire vicious cycle. Embracing this role requires none of the agonizing maintenance that the celebrity porn star Angel act required. These are all things that Angel doesn't need anything else to be. He is all these things intrinsically, whether it's at work or out in the town or at Hazbin Hotel. And that means these tools are not going away anytime soon. Since they're not tied to anything external in Angel's life, he is now free to change his life and keep those precious coping mechanisms. And then the drugs too. This is the other ingenious move. If Angel needs the escape of drugs, then that is just the reality. If that's the case, it would be counterproductive to try to push him to conquer a problem he's not strong enough to overcome yet. But still, that doesn't mean that everything can just stay the same. What you used to do was engage with drugs as this violent, self-destructive escapade. Whether it was the wild nights on the town with Cherry, the seedy rendezvous with fans who wanted to assault you, or coming home and needing the strongest drink available so you can knock yourself out cold, that you have to stop doing. By all means, keep drinking, but stop that and replace it with this. Have a drink with a friend. Engage with alcohol, but in a healthier way, in a way that maintains and strengthens social connections, and in a setting where people people talk about their problems to a bartender instead of using drugs to avoid their problems. It's so smart. Husk is just brilliant. He is the perfect embodiment of honestly this role that Angel kind of makes fun of at first, the wise bartender whose place is to understand people and give advice but not control them. And remember, that was what stopped other people from getting through to Angel, including Husk earlier, but that's also the reason why he's able to get through to Angel now, because the type of help he's providing cannot be construed as controlling. He's not putting Angel through any exercises or trying to get him to stop doing anything he doesn't want to stop or making him do anything he doesn't want to do. He is just providing an aid, a new perspective that Angel can decide for himself whether it's meaningful for him, a new tool that Angel can pick up and try out if he wants, and of course, companionship. I don't know if I've ever seen a story take on a topic like this in such a coherent, insightful, and thorough way, which is honestly crazy because it's Hazbin Hotel and most of the show is pretty loose, it's pretty sloppy with its storytelling, and it's consistently shallower than I want it to be, except here for some reason. This one episode is super deep and has super tight storytelling, and really provides so much guidance for writers in how to tell stories about mental health struggles. There's so much focus on unhealthy patterns and healthy coping mechanisms. It doesn't shy away from how messy it all is, how paradoxical, how confusing. It efficiently shows all these impacts on social relationships, how unstable they are, how people can turn from friends to foes and back over the course of a single day, how confusing it is for friends who try to provide help, what enabling behavior looks like with Charlie, and then even for the friend who does end up helping, it shows failed attempts, which is part of the process. You shouldn't feel discouraged because of that. And then not just showing all these layers of depth in the suffering itself, but showing exactly how poor help conflicts with those layers and how good help addresses them perfectly. And then also, even if you understand the struggle itself, it's going to be incredibly dependent on the specific person's personality and how they function and what they're good at and how they see themselves. If Husk was providing the same help to a different character, it would not take the form of this stage performance, which, by the way, it even is in the story itself. This happens to be one of the Hazbin songs that is diegetic, meaning the characters are actually in an alleyway singing this in the story, and other characters can hear them.
There he is! They're fucking singing! Get him!
And then also to be able to work this into the entire thematic and theological framework of the greater story. This whole idea about sinners not being born that way, but being circumstantially sinners. The malformed versus broken dynamic that forms the foundation of the plot conflict between heaven and hell. And it's even the terminology in which it's expressed. Loser is circumstantial language. We started out the same, and some won and some lost. It's just so well expressed, and it's so efficient. It's 22 minutes. Like, how is all this in just 22 minutes? And there's even more discussion to be had with this episode. You go deeper into Angel's relationship with Charlie and everything that happened there. You can talk about the portrayal of Valentino as the abuser, and you can probably go line by line with the lyrics of Loser Baby, analyze that. I'm sure there's also a lot to criticize with Angel's story or with the treatment of some of these topics. Definitely a discussion worth having, but beyond the scope of this video. This video is just about me being in awe of everything Hazbin Hotel got right here, and just the precision with how it's all expressed. It's really just an unbelievable character. Subscribe. Huge thank you to all the people I had discussions with about Angel Dust and all those who shared their thoughts with me, especially Joanne, Rain, Aiden, Tori, among others. Super helpful getting all your perspectives on this topic. But once again, Dion. Okay, it's time to talk about this person, Dion. You probably heard me mention several times over the course of like the last year plus. She's someone from my community who just has this extremely similar style of analysis to me. And because of that, I've often consulted her as like a second brain to help me hash out whatever crazy theory I'm developing. But anyway, she is starting a YouTube channel herself. That is what I wanted to tell you guys. And I would say if you're a fan of my stuff, you'll probably like her stuff. But in reality, chances are you guys are probably already fans of her and you just don't know it. Like if you've seen and enjoyed any of these videos of mine, she helped me with those. Her ideas are in those videos. So you guys are already fans. 0 activation costs if you remember that idea from the last Hazbin video, which by the way was also her idea. But yeah, her channel is called Squircle and she has a video on Fallout, specifically on parallel character arcs as it relates to the show's themes. I'll link it right here and in the comments. Go ahead and check that out. And as always, if you'd like to support my channel, check out the Patreon, link in the description and the cards. Huge thanks as always to everyone there for their support. Especially I want to thank high tier patrons Aiden Haboob, Kid Delta, and Audrey George. That is all I got for you guys now. Hope you all enjoyed, and thanks for watching.